how things fit together, but surprises that you all have seen that are the starting point for the work that you described on the last slide.
Yeah, I can probably address that. I'm Cindy Chadwick. I'm the Deputy County Librarian. One of the surprises that we're finding, the real goal of floating collections when we started in 2009, the goal of doing floating is to get materials in communities that want them. So the idea is that the communities can perhaps choose better, and if they are returned someplace, maybe it's because they need to be there. What we're finding is that it may not be so much about items ending up in communities where they're wanted as about traffic patterns and commute patterns for our patrons. That they return things places that are on their way to work or to home. And it's not panning out perhaps to be collections that represent the community. So that's just one initial, it's somewhat anecdotal at this point, but it's a start of where we need to start looking. And we will be pulling a task force together in the next few months to take a look at floating and what's happened the last 5 years and where we want to go next.
I also have a comment, Karen, is that okay? Certainly, go ahead. Yeah, I was concerned about when books float to Albany and then get discarded from Albany, is there any blowback from the branch that we, you know, if a book was purchased by the Dublin Friends for the Dublin Library, it comes here and then it's discarded from here, is that an issue? Is that a problem? Has that ever been discussed?
So one of the things about floating is that there still is a level of management centrally, and we have a central collection development staff and manager who does that. So when items are pulled for discard or for weeding here, where they go is back to our central administration. So that is all looked at centrally. And if they can be redistributed somewhere else where they will circulate, whether it's the original owning library or not, that's the first step.
So you're saying, because there's been a lot of sort of information, misinformation, I don't know, that when books get discarded from here, they immediately go from here to the dumpster. I mean, that's sort of the impression that you get from talking to people.
The actual process that's happened here is they get pulled off the shelf,
Right.
They get reviewed, they're offered to the friends of the library if they would like them, and if not, they're going down centrally for
And
evaluation.
if that's a book that was, say, purchased by the Friends of the Dublin Library, then it doesn't get a chance to go back to Dublin. At that point.
They retain their...
If the Friends sell it here, then that book is lost to Dublin.
And the way that we've sort of managed that with floating is to offer it for a year at the owning branch. So anything
Right.
that's purchased from our friends of the library, or through our trust rather, is probably a more corrective way of saying that, will stay and live in our library for a year. Same
But
with
after a
friends.
year, it can be discarded from any branch and sold by the Friends in their bookstore or whatever.
That's part of
without
floating, and that's
having an
something to look at.
opportunity to come back to the originating branch.
Right, and that is part of floating and something to look at.
The task force sounds very interesting. I'll be interested to hear, because the floating has been I'm a net gainer. I've checked out a ton of books myself personally, but I'd be very curious to hear more about working some of the little kinks out. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I don't believe so, no. So that leaves us with public comments. Yes. So the process is to line up along the side here.